I won't disappoint you, Master. Is that what I am? A Sith sorcerer?
Tell me what you told them.
I had to bring them here, Master. How much of your power is wasted on these parasites infecting your body? Can you teach me to be like you?
You will learn.
You allowed yourself to be captured by those royalists.
You dare to violate the rule of two. You dare to steal my ascension from me. My power far surpasses yours. I am the master. Today, your reign ends, Darth Bane.
Rain was a 10-year-old female human. She was raised by her cousin Root on a world named Somov Rit. In roughly the year 1032 BBY, Rain had been recruited by a Jedi by the name of Master Torr. She, along with her cousins Tomcat and Bug, were to be taken together to be trained. In the current time, Jedi and Sith are at war. This story takes place 3,000 years after the era of Revan and 1,000 years before the era of Darth Vader. Currently, Lord Khan of the Dark Brotherhood is the leader of the Sith army. He, along with his proclaimed equal brothers, who were also Dark Lords, were battling the Jedi in what would likely be their final standoff on the planet Ruusan. Rain and her cousins were brought to Ruusan by the Jedi Master so they could be recruited and trained for the Army of Light. The Army of Light was a legion of Jedi who had banded together to face the rising Sith threat. They had made their play here on Ruusan. Unfortunately, while Rain was being flown in to land on Ruusan, their shuttle was shot down and destroyed. Fortunately though, Rain had survived. It could have been her hidden potential with the use of the Force that saved her, or it could have just been the bouncer that caught her as she came plummeting from the sky. Bouncers were local creatures of Ruusan, usually friendly. They were in touch with the Force and were even able to commune telepathically using it. Rain was saved, but she was now stuck stranded, with nothing but the creature to keep her company. She had swiftly learned the creature could talk in her mind, and they quickly became friends. The creature didn't have a name, so Rain gave one to it. She decided to name the bouncer La. It was possible that the bouncer felt some natural desire to care for the young child. What was more likely is that the bouncer was also a child and just wanted to be friends. La did have a tribe, but the war that was currently raging on Ruusan had caused many of the wildlife to become collateral damage. La and Rain were alone. Eventually, La had tried to warn Rain that something was coming. The creature spoke in what seemed like riddles, using vague terms almost constantly. La told Rain that the bad dreams were coming. She wasn't sure what this meant, but she soon found out. A huge storm of lightning was about to wash over the entire forest that they currently found refuge in. Trees and land were being utterly decimated and scorched. If the sound of lethal weather and the sight of trees being thrown like twigs wasn't enough to scare the girl, then seeing the other wildlife and birds be disintegrated as the lightning approached, while at the same time she could smell the burnt cinders of bones and flesh, that was enough to frighten her to death. Somehow, Rain was able to tap into the Force to create a shield, likely amplified by the huge amounts of emotional distress that she was under. The shield was able to completely cover herself and La the bouncer, effectively saving both their lives as the sudden and destructive wave of lightning breezed over them. Unknowingly to Rain, a Dark Lord of the Sith had used a powerful ritual to summon the lightning over the forest. This Dark Lord was none other than Darth Bane. The ritual and dark side powers at work had corrupted some of the wildlife of Ruusan, including the bouncers. The corruption made them violent to outsiders. The Brotherhood and Jedi both were killing bouncers on sight for this reason. Luckily, the bouncer with Rain was protected by her Force shield. A few days later though, Rain and La had felt another occurrence happen far away, this time in the form of a groundquake. They were safe at this distance though. Unknowingly to them, this was the aftershocks of the incredibly lethal Fort Bomb ritual. Not too long after, two Jedi from the Army of Light stumbled across Rain and La in the plains of Ruusan. The Jedi saw the bouncer and assumed it would be hostile, so they gunned it down on sight.
Looks like the bouncer is dead. These things are everywhere lately. Hey, you there! Are you okay?
Rain had gone berserk. Her one and only friend, La, was just killed out of nowhere. She'd experienced so much loss recently. First her childhood friends, and now La. She screamed as loud as she could, and in doing so, she was able to reach out using the Force to snap the neck of the Jedi in front of her. Before his comrade had any time to react, she had already turned and used the Force to break his neck too. After the bodies fell to the floor, she stopped screaming, and then she molded herself around her fallen friend and began to cry. Darth Bane found her there. She didn't scarce or lash out against him. He stepped forward, and it was clear he had already put together what happened. He could see she had killed 2 Jedi, likely in revenge of the dead bouncer she was huddled next to. The girl stood up and unknowingly approached the Dark Lord. He asked her a question.
Who are you?
My name is Rain. I mean, Zannaah. My cousins called me Rain, but they're dead now. Zannaah's my real name.
Do you know who I am?
You're a Sith.
Are you afraid, child?
No.
I have killed many people. Men, women, even children.
I'm a killer now, too.
Do you know the ways of the Force?
No. But you could teach me.
Zannaah had been found by a Sith Lord named Darth Bane. The only thing she knew about the Sith is that they were the ones who were fighting the Jedi here on Ruusan. She believed her cousins, Tomcat and Bug, were dead after the shuttle crashed. She was amazed to still be alive herself after all this time. When Bane offered to take her on as an apprentice of the dark side, she jumped at the opportunity. Exactly why is hard to say. It might have been because she didn't want to be alone, or perhaps she could sense the power in Darth Bane and wanted that for herself. Either way, she chose to follow him and become the heir to the entire Sith legacy. She followed her new master along the plains of Ruusan. However, she was barely 10 years old and just simply couldn't keep up with the Dark Lord on foot as he marched ahead of her.
Slow down. I can't keep up.
You are strong in the Force. You must learn to use it, to call on its power, to bend it to your purpose, as you did when you killed the Jedi.
I don't know how I did that. I didn't even mean to do it. It just sort of happened.
Nothing just happens. You've already called upon the power of the Force. Think back to how you did it. Think back to how it happened.
I don't want to.
You feel sorry for those Jedi now? You feel regret, remorse, perhaps even pity. But these are worthless emotions. They mean nothing. What you need to feel is anger. The deaths were not an accident. What happened was not some mistake. Think back to what you felt when you unleashed your power against them. Think of what you felt when the Jedi murdered your friend.
They killed Lar. They deserved to die.
Good. Feel the anger. Welcome it. Embrace it. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power.
Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power.
The Jedi died because they were weak. Only the strong survive, and the Force will make you stronger. Use it to keep up. If you fall behind again, I will leave you here on this world.
But you still haven't told me what to do.
A Sith knows when to unleash the fury of the dark side and when to hold back. Patience can be used as a weapon of the dark side if you learn how to use it. And your anger can fuel the dark side when you learn to control it.
Where are we going?
To the Sith camp. We'll require supplies for our journey.
Are there other Sith here? The ones the Jedi were fighting.
There are no other Sith. There never will be. Except for us. One master. And one apprentice. One to embody the power. The other to crave it.
What happened to the others?
I killed them.
Then they were weak and deserved to die.
Well said, my apprentice. Wait here.
Zannaah followed her master across Ruusan until eventually they had found the camp Darth Bane was talking about. Impressively, Zannaah was able to sense the scavengers ahead at the camp, but her master had already sensed them earlier. They stopped not too far away, and Zannaah was instructed to wait. As soon as her master left, she followed him, disobeying his order. She wasn't sure how he might react, but Zannaah just wanted to see what her master was capable of. She had no chance of being able to keep up with Bane as he travelled full speed toward the camp. So in her own pace, she made her way there. By the time she had arrived, her master had already killed at least 6 scavengers who were sifting through the abandoned Sith remains in search of treasures and loot. Although she arrived late, she could see from the carnage around that Bane was indeed very powerful. He had charged into battle and slaughtered everyone around. Well, almost everyone. Zannaah could see that Bane had let 2 of the scavengers run free.
You let them get away?
I told you to wait for me. Why did you disobey?
I wanted to see the true power of the dark side. Can you teach me to be like you?
You will learn. Prowess in combat is the simplest display of the dark side's power. Brutal and quick, it serves its purpose, yet it is often less effective than subtlety and cunning. Ultimately, letting those mercenary scavengers live will prove far more useful than killing them.
But they were weak. They deserved to die?
Few beings in the galaxy ever get what they truly deserve. Our mission is not to bring death to all those who are unfit to live. We answer to a greater calling. All that I have done on Ruusan and all that we will do from this day forward must serve our true purpose, the preservation of our order and the survival of the Sith.
I'm sorry, Master. I still don't understand why you didn't just kill them.
As servants of the dark side, we revel in the vanquishing of our enemies. We draw power from their suffering. But we must balance this against greater gains. We must recognize that killing for sadistic pleasure, however pleasant it may be, killing without reason, need, or purpose, is the act of a fool.
What purpose is there in letting scum like that live?
The Jedi believe the Order of the Sith died here on Ruusan. There are other followers of the dark side on many worlds, the marauders of Hanugur and Gamur, the shadow assassins of Ryloth and Bara. But those with the greatest power, all those individuals with the potential to become true Sith Masters, had gathered together in Khan's Brotherhood. As one, they followed him into this war, and as one, they followed him into death. But there will be those who doubt the totality of the Sith's extinction. There will always be whispers that the Sith survive, hints and rumors that somewhere in the galaxy a Dark Lord lives. And if the Jedi ever find proof of our existence, they will be relentless in hunting us down. We cannot live in isolation, cut off from the rest of the galaxy while cowering in fear. We must work to grow our power. We will need to interact with many individuals from many species across many worlds. It is inevitable that someone will recognize us for what we are, no matter our disguise. Eventually, word of our existence will reach the ear of the Jedi. Since we cannot hide the fact of our survival, we must obscure it with half-truths. We must encourage the rumors, spreading them so thick they blind our enemies until they cannot separate the myth from the reality.
A rumor is as reliable as its source. No one will believe what those scavengers will say.
The survivors will spread the tale, but who will believe the likes of them? Everyone will know they are self-serving mercenaries who fled the final battle to save themselves, then came to loot the camp of or their former allies. They will be spit upon as traitors and thieves. Nobody who hears their story will believe it, and the truth will be dismissed as any other worthless rumor. And if there are other witnesses to our presence on Rusan, their accounts are now less likely to be believed. They will be tainted by the similarities of the so-called lies spewing from the mouths of cowardly looters.
No use or purpose in their deaths.
Zanna watches as her master scavenges through the Sith camp. In the corner of her eye, she sees a book of sorts laid nearby. She picks it up and inspects it, only to see a language she does not recognize. She asks her master what the item is, and he holds his hand out while she passes the item over. Her master glances over the book, and his reaction told her that what she found was important. Unknowingly to Zanna, she had uncovered a record from the former Sith master, Cordis. This record held valuable banking clan codes with access to the many of the Sith Empire's fortune. It also held the location of Freedom Nard's tomb. Her master didn't relay this information. Zanna was only ever to be told what she needed to know, nothing more. After they were done gathering supplies at the camp, Darth Bane took Zanna to the location of the Thought Bomb. The Thought Bomb was a devastatingly powerful dark side ritual. When conjured, it would create an exploding vortex that sucked in the life force of all Force users around. The Thought Bomb was manipulated into existence through Bane's own cunning and secrecy. He had brought Zanna here so she could acknowledge that they were the only two remaining Sith. Her master had killed all the others. He had done this to preserve the strength of the Sith. He was the strongest, so he took the title he deserved. Zanna was eager to learn, probing her master with curious questions about the Force. However, as they were conversing, an old familiar face to Zanna came running towards them both. Somehow, somewhere, Zanna's cousin Tomcat had survived and was now before Zanna. Her cousin recognized Bane as a Sith and immediately tried to lash out against him. However, Zanna wanted the life that Bane offered her, to become the heir of the dark side's legacy. Before Bane was able to act, Zanna had used the Force to completely explode the hand of her cousin. Tomcat had run at Darth Bane with a lightsaber in his hand. Now the weapon was on the floor, and her cousin was shrieking in pain. In time, her cousin would realize this was her final mercy. She destroyed his hand in an effort to keep Bane from lashing out, which would have resulted in his death. Now he gets to live, albeit with just one hand. Her master questioned the actions, but Zanna simply explained that there was no use or purpose in his death, using the logic he had recently taught her against him. She was right too. The chances of anyone believing a Sith Lord and a small girl were seen together were incredibly unlikely. Bane approved of his new apprentice's behaviour, and the two carried on and left Tomcat alone to suffer. While walking away with her new master, Zanna didn't once look back. Next, they headed out for Darth Bane's personal starship. However, when they arrived...
Oh, this is a nice ship. I never imagined I'd be riding in something like this off-world.
You are not.
We're not taking your ship?
I am. You must make your own way off this world.
I can't come with you?
No.
But why not? What did I do? Why are you leaving me?
This is part of your training. To understand the dark side, you must experience hardship and struggle.
You don't have to abandon me to make me suffer.
The strength of the dark side lies with the individual. The Force comes from within. You must learn to draw on it yourself. I will not always be there to teach you.
But you said there was always two. One to embody the power and the other to crave it.
Why do you follow me?
To unleash my full potential. To learn the ways of the dark side.
And when I no longer have anything to teach you, what will happen then?
I don't know.
There will come a time when your training ends. There will come a day when you have learned all the lessons, when all my knowledge of the dark side will be yours. And on that day, you will challenge me for the title of Master. And only one of us will survive that encounter. You have the potential to surpass me. If you achieve your potential, I will cease to be of use to you. You will need to find new sources of knowledge. You will have to find a new apprentice, so that you may pass on the secrets of the Sith Order to another. When your power eclipses mine, I will become expendable. I will be weak. And you know what we do with weakness. This is the rule of 2. 1 master, 1 apprentice. When you are ready to claim the mantle of Dark Lord as your own, you must do so by eliminating me. The confrontation is inevitable. It is the only way the Sith can survive. It is the way of the dark side. Make your way to Onderon. I will meet you there in 10 standard days.
How am I supposed to get there?
You are my chosen one, the anointed heir to the legacy of our order. You will find a way.
And if I don't?
Then you will have proven yourself unworthy of being my successor, and I will seek out another apprentice.
Zanna was left alone on the surface of Ruusan. She did nothing but stand motionless and stare as her master flew his ship out of sight. Zanna considered using the swoop bike to find people and then hopefully transport off-world, but she was too small to operate the bike. She opted to use the lessons that Bane had recently taught her instead. Patience, along with being able to wield the Force to propel herself forward on foot. She did this for as long as she could, until her feet hurt. She was still new to adopting the power of the Force, so she ended up fatiguing herself along the plains of Ruusan. She didn't know how long or how far she had walked, but eventually she saw a shuttle and people nearby. There was an old man, a young woman and 2 boys who seemed to be stockpiling their ship. As she slowly stumbled her way to their location, the young woman saw Zanna and called out to her. The people could see that she was in need of help, and they decided to take her on board and speak with her inside of the cargo hold. Before they talked, they gave Zanna some food and something to drink. Then they questioned her about who she was and where her parents were. However, Zanna knew she had to choose her responses carefully. Bane had told her that the Sith Order must remain a secret. Therefore, she had to make sure she didn't do anything or say anything that would make them suspect who she really was. But what could she do? After all, she was just a little girl who had no home or no family to go to. The only thing she had now was her new master, Darth Bane. He had promised her that she would succeed him. When Zanna was asked by her saviors what her name was, she told them her name was Rain. Traditionally, when you become Sith, you can choose to take on a new name. Zanna had chosen to keep her real name. She told her saviors the name Rain as this was her cover. It was the name her cousins used and one she knew growing up, a nickname. To give it up and use her real name was to let go of her childhood and innocence. It soon became apparent to these people that Rain was a war orphan. When asked if she wanted to go with her saviors, Rain told them she needed to go to Onderon. Knowing she couldn't tell them why, she offered a lie instead. She told them that she had family on Onderon. She just needed to find them. The older man, who spoke with calmness, explained to Rain that they would take her to the fleet in orbit, then decide what to do in the morning. He had also offered for her to come and live with him on Ruusan, just until they found her family at least. It had been so long that kindness made its way to Zanna that her mouth dropped at the offer. She was left alone in the cargo hold to think about her options and eat. Rain was stunned that someone would just take her in like that. Bane had abandoned her. He said she was the heir to the Sith and she wasn't sure if that's what she wanted. Then she thought about what the old man had said, that she could stay with him and his boys. Why would she want to have a close connection to people she could not protect? Her bouncer friend La had died because she couldn't protect him. The old man was tempting Zanna with a simple and easy life. Peace is a lie, she thought to herself, knowing that accepting a mediocre life would not allow her to embrace her full potential. Through her master, she would be able to gain power she could only dream of. She would no longer be a victim of this world. Through victory, my chains are broken. Zanna had made up her mind. She had realized what she truly was. Sith. Zanna took to searching through the cargo hold, hoping to find something she could use to help her escape, or even stop the shuttle from arriving on the fleet. Just as one of the boys entered the cargo hold, she found a blaster. Before she knew it, they were both wrestling for the weapon she had found and the blaster went off, killing the young boy, and his limp body slumped over Zanna. The older man and father of the boy had ran in to see what the commotion was, and before he could reach his dead son or Zanna, she fired the blaster, wounding and paralyzing the old man. She fired a second shot while screaming in horror of what she was witnessing. The second shot killed the old man. On the ship intercom, she heard the young woman acknowledge the fired shots. Quickly, she made her way to the cockpit where the young woman and the other teenage boy currently were. Zanna demanded that they plot a course for Onderon. After the woman complied, she tried to talk Zanna down, asking what happened and trying to tell Zanna she wasn't a killer, which was wrong. Already she had killed 4 people, including 2 Jedi, and she was just 10 years old. Zanna squeezed the trigger, ending the woman's life. Then she turned towards the boy, who begged for his life, which of course didn't work. Zanna had accepted who she was now. She was Sith. She could feel the fear in the boy and the pull of the dark side responding to it. Zanna pulled the trigger again and added another body to her death counts. Despite her small size, Zanna was able to manage moving the bodies from the cockpit into the cargo hold with the others. She knew the ship was on autopilot and all she needed to do was just wait out the journey. Zanna helped herself to the ration kits on board the ship. However, because they were adult-sized portions, she couldn't ever finish a full serving, so she would throw the leftovers behind her out into the corridor past the cockpit. After a few days, she could smell the food going bad, but she welcomed the smell as it covered the even worse smell of decaying flesh coming from the cargo hold. To escape being bored while on her journey, she would try to imagine what her future will be like with Bane. The power and knowledge he promised her was something she really wanted. She didn't want to be a victim anymore. She wanted to be strong, but her mind kept forcing her to remember the people she had recently killed. She wondered what her master would say about such weakness. Just then, the autopilot beeped to alert her that she was going to be arriving in a few minutes. The navicomputer was requesting coordinates for landing. At this moment, she realized she had no idea how to land the ship. So far, she just assumed that the autopilot would just land on its own, but she didn't know any coordinates to put in the terminal. In a panic, she decided to press random buttons until something happened. Hopefully good. After a few tries, the navicomputer accepted a landing location. When she looked out the cockpit viewing window, all that could be seen was lots of green. She worried that the autopilot would fail and crash into the treetops below. Then the navicomputer beeped again to notify it had chosen itself another landing location that was more optimal. After a somewhat safe landing, Zanna and the ship were unharmed. Zanna was safe from injury inside the harness of the pilot's seat. She steadily makes her way off the shuttle. She could see that she had landed in a large circle clearing inside of a forest, some form of man-made landing area. There was a person in the distance waving Zanna over. As she walked nearer, she could see that the person was a man, dressed in dirty and torn clothing. The man said to Zanna that her pilot must not be very good after a landing like that. She explained she was the only person on board, trying to hide the fact that there was bodies in the cargo hold. The man had told Zanna that she had to pay for landing in their property. After she explained she had no money, the strange man declared he would take her ship as payment instead. Several other people made their way out of the tree line carrying weapons. She used her newfound power in the Force to knock the man to the ground and then tried to run back to the ship, but she knew it was futile to run after she saw a huge bird-like creature land in the clearing. These people were Onderon Beast Riders from the Zelda clan. The man began to tease Zanna as she was clearly defenseless against them all and their winged beast, and in that moment, she sensed him, nearing closer and closer by the second. But it wasn't the strange man, it was Bane. As promised, he had arrived on Onderon to meet his new apprentice. Her master swept down on his own winged beast, a Drexel, much larger than any of the other flyers the beast handlers had with them. The creature grabbed the strange man in front of Zanna and tossed him around like a limp ragdoll, and then dropped him from a staggering 30-meter height to his death. Within a few moments, Bane had flown into the skies with the other beast riders who joined the fray. Zanna watched the spectacle in amazement as she witnessed her master take the advantage. A few more moments later, she sees 3 flyers bundled together all come crashing to the ground, leaving a huge mess of exploded flesh. Rising like a mountain from the wreckage, Bane walks towards Zanna, appearing unscathed. Zannaah was amazed to see that her master survived the fall and seemingly without injury. She was filled with excitement to know that one day she could have this much power for herself. Zannaah was eager to learn. As her master grew closer, she saw a disgusting crustacean-like creature attached to his chest.
They are called obelisks, creatures that feed on the dark side. Without them, I would not have survived what you just witnessed. They can sense your presence. They are reacting to your attunement of the dark side.
How do you get them off?
I don't. This armor will be permanent.
Will I have to wear them too?
The benefits of the armor, healing and resistance to blaster fire and lightsabers, they come with a cost. The creatures must feed on my connection to the dark side, and in turn, they grant me more power. The process is painful. It'll be too much for you to bear as a child. Perhaps too much for you to ever bear.
I stole a ship. I had to kill the crew.
You did what was required to accomplish your goal. You showed through strength and cunning that you have the will to destroy those in your way. You saw what you wanted, and you took it. This is the way of the dark side. You acted as a true Sith.
What happens now, Master?
Now, your real training begins.
After such hardship and struggle in her life, Zannaah for the first time felt relief. She felt as though her life had purpose and that Bane was going to bring that vision to life. Zannaah was no longer afraid of her future. Under his teachings, she would become heir to the entire Sith legacy. Her training began with simple emotional lessons. As she was just a child still, Zannaah had to learn how to control her emotions and use them as fuel for the dark side. 8 days after leaving Onderon, they had made a camp on the planet Ambria, not too far from Lake Narth. Darth Bane had instructed Zannaah to lure one of the local critters back to him. She had to do this without injuring the critter, and it had to follow her of its own will. Knowing she couldn't set a trap, Zannaah tried to dominate the mind of a critter using the Force. However, the nearby Lake Narth, which was imbued with the power of the dark side, had mutated the critters to resist her attempts. Instead, she practiced meditating in the location of the critters' gathering spot. For the first week, the critters wouldn't come out of hiding, but as the next week passed, the critters began to return and become curious of Zannaah's peaceful presence. After the 3rd week of meditating, one curious critter came close enough to feed by hand. After this became a pattern, Zannaah decided to move her meditation location closer to the camp each day. The critter would always come looking for her and take the food that she offered. And then one day, when she stood to return to camp, the critter began to follow her. Knowing that she was about to succeed in her task, she slowly made her way back to camp, with the critter following along.
Look, Master, I did what you asked.
Good. Now toss it in the stew.
I see you decided to teach me 2 lessons today, Master.
Zannaah had learned that the critter was to be used as a tool, then simply thrown away. Her mistake was letting herself become attached to the critter. She saw what her master did as a warning that her allegiance belongs to only him. Almost 3 years later, Bane had begun instructing Zannaah in the art of lightsaber combat. While her master made her learn many drills and techniques, the Sarisu form was the form that he wanted her to adopt. For 1 entire year, she trained each day practicing the swings and routines, until eventually, when she was 14 years old, Darth Bane tasked her with constructing a lightsaber. The result was a twin-bladed lightsaber powered by 2 crystals. However, rather than the usual 1.5 meter blade length, Zannaah's was just under 1 meter at either end. This was to help her defend much more easily. Zannaah was average height for her age, but she wasn't an imposing figure. She would need to rely on her quickness and ability to outlast the opponent. The shorter blades would also allow her to move the weapon more freely, so that she could maximize her agility in combat. Once she had her lightsaber, Darth Bane would spar with her to sharpen her technique. At this time, the obelisks that had only been on Bane's chest and shoulder years before had now spread to encase the majority of his person. With them being resistant to lightsabers, this gave Zanna a unique training regime, as she could score hits on her master and not have to worry about the consequences of a lightsaber strike. Zanna knew that her master had uncovered new secrets from the holocron of Freedom Nard. However, he refused to share them with her. Instead, he explained only that he was testing her through a new method. After some time, Zanna was beginning to think she had failed her master in some way because there was no news of the results. And then he explained.
The dark side of the Force is a relay in many directions. Some Dark Lords have the gift to move mountains with a mere thought, or make a sun go supernova. Your talents as per these results would suggest that your own abilities lie within the direction of dark magics and spells.
Is that what I am? A Sith sorcerer?
With patience, you could be. Within Freedom Nad's holocron, I found and transcribed these spells. Your studies down this path will be relentless. You will have to do all of this on your own. I am not able to guide you in this direction. My own talents lie elsewhere.
I won't disappoint you, Master.
Good. Should you ever attempt to use one of these spells upon me, I will destroy you.
Over the next few years, Zanna practiced her new dark side methods and became very adept in the ways of mind manipulation and being able to make people see their worst fears and nightmares, driving them to the point of insanity or even comatose. In her youth, Zanna witnessed her master meet with Immune from the banking clans. Using the codes that Zanna found back on Ruusan, her master was able to set up and access various well-funded accounts which he used to employ spies across the galaxy. This Mune had seen Bane's face and even Zanna's. Although the Mune didn't know their real names or the fact that they were Sith, Zanna wondered how her master would kill the Mune now that their business had concluded. However, her master had let the Mune leave the meeting without incident. There was no use or purpose in his death. Seeing who her master would kill and who he wouldn't kill became an important observation to Zanna. It taught her how to identify a tool and store it for later use. Much like her story her master had told her about a healer he left alive back on Ambria. Zanna was now 20 years old. Her master relied on Zanna to be his eyes and ears throughout the galaxy, due to his intimidating and hard-to-forget appearance via the obelisk armor that encased his entire persona, minus his hands, feet and head. Bane could no longer go out in public, as this was too risky. He could easily be identified as an agent of the dark side. Therefore, he tasked Zanna with infiltrating a rebel organization on the planet Serena. She didn't know exactly why she was doing this, but all she needed to do was obey her master. Zanna spent several months gaining the trust of one of the rebel members, who was a male Twi'lek named Kaladin. She had told him that she works for the Republic Embassy here on Serena. That way he would be interested in her. However, Zanna was a grown woman now. She had long, luscious, curly blonde hair, and her facial features screamed beauty into the eyes of those who saw her. You could say she was somewhat irresistible to men, even women. Zanna knew that Kaladin and the other rebels opposed the Republic and their new reformations. Bane instructed Zanna to lure them into an idea. She needed to convince the rebel group to attack the former Supreme Chancellor. When he arrived on Serena, she successfully infiltrated the group and became lovers with Kaladin. However, she had used the fake name Reyna as cover for her position.
Reyna! Reyna!
Keep your voice down. Everybody's staring at us.
Let them stare. They are communists. Their opinion means nothing to me.
You're late. I don't like to be kept waiting.
I shouldn't even be doing this.
I'm sorry. I was beginning to think you were with another lover. If I ever find you with another woman, I will cut out her heart.
You are more than enough for any male.
We don't have time for this. Your friends are waiting for us?
You're right. Let's go.
Zanna followed along and was taken inside a building which housed the other rebels. Some of them protested to her presence, but Kaladin vouched for her. She wouldn't be able to just blurt out her idea and ask them to do it. Instead, she had slowly told Kaladin her plan until he came up with it on his own and believed it was his idea. Kaladin told his plan to the other rebels and convinced them to go through with it. Knowing that her mission was now successful, she spent one more night with her lover before they went their separate ways. Kaladin and his band of rebels, who were actually working under a man named Hetan, went out on their mission to assault the former Chancellor. Zannaah had already learned the lesson of attachment. She didn't make that mistake again here. She returned to Darthbane and the camp on Ambria and delivered the news of her success. She could also see from the state of the camp that her master had failed yet again to create a holocron. This was his third time trying to make the artifact. Her master had clearly entered a rage and destroyed the camp in his fury. Zannaah could still sense the power of his rage crackling in the air. She wondered to herself, had she been here when this happened? Would she have been able to prevent his rage? Would she have even been able to survive? The obelisks on his body gave him great power. This was undeniable. Yet Zannaah wondered whether this power was truly worth it. If her master was unable to control it, he had allowed the obelisks to fuel his rage and let it go unchecked. She was now almost certain that if he was ever to enter this rage fueled by the obelisks while she was around, she would probably die. Attempting to convince her master to remove the obelisks might be necessary for her own survival. Yet she had to be careful how she decided to manipulate her master with words. If he was to notice that she seeked to weaken him, his reaction could be life-threatening. Zannaah could see her master on the outskirts of the camp, seated and meditating. She approached him, and he rose to greet her.
It's done. When the former Counselor Valorum lands, Cal and the others will be waiting for him.
You have done well.
Are they going to succeed their mission?
No.
Then what purpose do they serve? I don't understand why you would send me on a mission like this. Why spend this time and effort knowing they are going to fail?
They do not need to succeed to be of value to us. The Separatists are only a distraction. They draw the attention of the Senate and blind the eyes of the Jedi Council.
Blind them? What do you mean?
The Jedi have surrendered themselves to the will of the Senate. The Jedi have sank into the cesspool of politics and bureaucracy. Because the Senate believe the Sith threat to be eradicated through our own manipulation and deceit, the Jedi have become weaker. The Senate no longer believes in the need for a Jedi army, of even Jedi leaders now. With the Sith presumably gone, they live in a safe bubble that no longer needs protecting. They believe they live in safety, believing that people are safe and no longer require the Jedi's protection. The Senate has redirected the Jedi to dealing with matters such as these separatist threats, therefore wasting resources and time on scenarios that we organize for them. The time they spend quarreling these uprisings and essentially fighting amongst themselves, we also spend becoming stronger, while shielded from the eyes and attention of the Jedi Council.
But why must the Separatists always fail? We could help them succeed without risking showing ourselves.
If they succeed, their power and influence will grow as they become larger in number and more powerful as an individual body. That harder it will be to control them. We must safeguard who we allow to rise to power and who we do not. In 20 years' time, they could be the authority that stands against us. We must not organize our own demise. We must exploit them, play them off each other, while we stay hidden and grow strong. One day, the Republic will fall, and the Jedi will be wiped out. But it will not happen until we are ready to seize that power for ourselves. You have never questioned your missions before.
Even if I don't understand my mission sometimes, I never had reason to doubt your wisdom, Master.
Yet you doubt me now.
I've never seen you lose control of your power like this before. I feared the obelisks could be influencing your judgment. I feared they might have driven you mad. How much of your power is wasted on these parasites infecting your body?
I control the obelisks. They do not control me. Clean up the camp. Then return to Sereno. We need more supplies.
Although there was truth in her words, attempting to manipulate her master this way was very risky. Despite Bane's reaction, she could tell that her seed of doubt was planted successfully. If Zannaah could somehow convince Bane that the obelisk posed a risk to her own safety, or even were somehow weakening him, he might find a way to take them off. She also knew that her final confrontation with him would be much more survivable if her master had no armor. Zannaah returned to Sereno after clearing the camp. She was tasked with collecting more supplies, seeing as Bane destroyed the last batch. While on her travels, she bumped into two of the other rebel separatists, ones that she had met back at the meeting with Kaladin. Their mission had gone horribly wrong, and they knew Zannaah had something to do with it. They followed her into an alley and cornered her. They still believed her name to be Reyna. One of them said they were going to take her to see Hetton, the leader of the organization. When she heard that, she decided to play along with being kidnapped. She could have just killed them both then and there, but she wanted to meet Hetton. The two kidnappers confiscated her lightsaber and accused her of stealing it from a Jedi. They intended to give it to Hetton as a treasure. The three of them got into a vehicle and made their way to Hetton's stronghold. As it turned out, the leader of the Separatist was a noble house on Onderon. After being taken inside, Zannaah was introduced to Hetton, who was a small, skinny old man. Zannaah was surprised when she was able to sense the power of the dark side within him. It was clear to her that he had been somewhat trained. However, weighing his power against her own, she knew that she could easily kill everyone in this room. Zannaah was the superior here. The two Separatist kidnappers received a scolding from Hetton about the failed mission. They presented him with the lightsaber and told him Reyna or Zannaah had it with her. One of the two kidnappers spoke up and said that she could get Zannaah to talk within just 5 minutes of being alone with her. At this point, Zannaah had enough of the charade. She twisted and curled her fingers in intricate patterns, all within the fraction of 1 second. The kidnapper who spoke up was suddenly tormented with images of their nightmares made reality. Everyone else in the room, including the other kidnapper, could only watch in horror as they had no idea what was happening. Then, Zannaah pushed the spell even further, and forced images of herself sleeping with this person's lover, which drove them to scream and cry. Creeping slowly into madness, they began to claw and gouge out their own eyes. And then Zannaah let their mind slip into the void. They wasn't dead, but whatever was left of them wished they were dead. The second kidnapper accused Zannaah of the situation and ran toward her with a vibroblade. Zannaah pulled her own lightsaber back to her hand using the force and toyed with the man as he failed time and time to land a blow. When he threw his weapon down and pulled out a blaster, Zannaah deflected his shots, sending the second blast into his face at point-blank range, leaving behind no recognizable facial features. Hetton, who witnessed the entire thing, approached Zannaah and kneels down. He says he's been waiting to find someone who can teach him and finish his training. Hetton pledged himself to Zannaah so long as she would teach him the ways of the dark side. Zannaah was reluctant to agree. However, Hetton had many resources to offer. He had a personal guard made up of a dozen Umbaran assassins, trained in stealth. He also had a vast amount of dark side artifacts and records. Among them was a data disk that he offered to Zannaah as a gift. It was a record of an ancient Sith Lord named Belia Dazu. Hetton said that this Sith Lord would be of interest to Zannaah considering her own gifts, and that also Belia Dazu was the last Sith to successfully create a holocron. When Zannaah heard those words, she instantly knew her master required this knowledge. She began to think up a plan. Hetton was offering his entire resources to be able to train under Zannaah. However, in accordance with the rule of 2, there can be only 2 Sith. This was hardwired into Zannaah's teachings. She explained this to Hetton and even told him about her master, Darth Bane. Hetton had suggested that together they could kill her master, and then they would only be the 2 remaining Sith. Zannaah knew she was no match for her master, but with Hetton and his Umbaran assassins, she was curious to see what would happen. She organised with Hetton a plan to attack Darth Bane. Back at the camp on Ambria, Zannaah, Hetton, and the Umbaran assassins began their assault. Bane was meditating, as he was when Zannaah had left the previous day. The Umbaran assassins went in first, using their stealth methods to gain the upper hand. However, Bane had sensed a mute sound and recognized an ambush taking place. He sprang to action and a battle ensued. Zannaah and Hetton stood off to the side to simply observe for now. However, very quickly, they began to realize that the Umbaran assassins were being overpowered. Easily. Their electrostaffs had proven useless against Bane's armor and caused no harm to him. Within moments, 3 of the assassins were already dead, hewed in half at grotesque angles. Zannaah witnessed the remaining 5 assassins strike at once against Bane with their electropikes. The obelisk armor filtered majority of the zap, but enough made it through to shock Bane head to toe. The assassins could have finished him off, however all of them were stunned that someone just survived that attack. Bane quickly regained his footing and began to take the advantage. Bane sees Zannaah stood with Hetton and easily calculates what has happened. She betrayed him. Hetton, the old man, tried to send a beam of force lightning at Bane, which he easily deflects. He then jumps to Hetton's location and runs him through with his saber. Zannaah looked around and saw that Bane had killed everyone. It didn't even take long. However, Bane was once again consumed by fury and anger and strikes out against his apprentice.
You betrayed me!
No, Master, I was...
Did you really think those pathetic assassins could kill me?
Master, please, I did this for you!
Ah!
I had to bring them here, Master. I brought you this. It has the secret to making a Sith holocron.
You did this for me?
Yes, Master. Hetton was the Separatist leader. They kidnapped me back on Ruusan. I learned Hetton knew the ways of the dark side and has many records in his possession. I had to bring them, Master, I'm sorry. It was the only way to get this data disk.
And what would you have done if they had killed me?
Then, you would have been weak, unworthy of being the Dark Lord, and you would deserve to die.
Zannaah successfully convinced her master that she had acted on his behalf. In truth, she wanted to see her master in combat, and seeing how the assassins exposed a weakness in his armor with large electrical bursts, the entire situation had been worth it. Now, Zannaah knew how to fight against them when the time comes. Bane spent some time studying the data disk and uncovered that Belia Dazu's tomb was located on an ancient Jedi homeworld, Typhon. The coordinates were also within the data disk, and Bane declared that he would be going alone in search of the knowledge to make a Sith holocron. But her master did have a mission for Zannaah. Her seed of doubt had finally paid off. Bane was somewhat considering the possibility that the obelisks were affecting his ability to make a Sith holocron, along with sending him into sometimes uncontrollable rage. However, Zannaah's master knew what to do. He tasked Zannaah with learning a new spell, the spell of projecting a light side aura. He would be using this spell to go undercover at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. At first, Zannaah thought the idea was mad, but her master had put the pieces together so intricately she was convinced it would work. Using their connections with spies, they were able to copy the identity of a Jedi Padawan who was not currently on Coruscant. Zannaah would use this identity to infiltrate the temple and then the Jedi Archive. The archives would surely have the information on the obelisks and how to remove them. So this was Zannaah's mission. Her master set out on his journey to Typhon, and Zannaah began her preparations for the mission. She started by dyeing her hair a dark colour to match that of the Padawan's identity they were using. She then practiced her ability to mask herself in a light side aura. At the same time, she had to hide her dark side aura. This was the first time she had faced such a mentally draining challenge, but she welcomed it. So far, she was able to keep her darkness hidden for long periods of time. However, eventually she would lose concentration, and her real self would show through before she can recompose. For now, she had to hope that this would be enough to see her through the mission. Zannaah used Hetton's personal starship to make the trip to Coruscant. She was dressed in her disguise as the Padawan Nalia Adolu. When she arrived on Coruscant with no issues, she made her way casually to the Jedi Temple, and then toward the location of Jedi Master Bara. Zannaah had preemptively researched the Jedi for her mission. She knew who was the lead archivist, Master Bara, and where to find him. She would be needing his permission to browse the library's archives. She would be requesting to see something that wouldn't draw suspicion, when in reality she would search for the obelisks. When she makes it to the Jedi Master, the true test of her light side disguise begins.
Oh, Padawan Nalia, we haven't seen you in quite some time. It must be nice getting away from Polis.
Yes, Master Bara. Getting away from the cold is nice.
I bet Master Anno would disagree. He always did enjoy the climate of Polis.
Of course. My master sends his regards. Will you be visiting him anytime soon?
I'm afraid not. The Jedi archives require my constant attention and supervision.
My master said you would say that. He said you would say anything to get out of visiting Polis again.
I have reviewed the request for the archives, and I believe we can accommodate you.
Thank you, Master Bara.
Zannaah was successful. She had made her way into the temple and now had access to the Jedi library. She knew that if she could fool a Jedi Master who stood mere feet away, she could fool anyone. Zannaah proceeded to sit down in a quiet area and search for the information she needed. Filtering through page after page, Zannaah could barely hold in her disguise any longer from the frustration of coming up short on the search. It wasn't that she couldn't find anything about the obelisks, it's that the search came up with thousands of results. Zannaah needed only know how to remove them from the host, and finding that specifically was proving to be difficult amongst the data. Eventually, she stumbled across the research of one Dr. Hozof Humud. His data had uncovered that a male from the species of Nikto had once removed his obelisks because they disfigured him so much he could not find a mate. As Zannaah read on, she saw that the research included the entire process of how to remove the obelisks. She had finally found what she was looking for. As she celebrated, her mask of the light side vanished for a moment. In fear, she exposed herself. Zannaah quickly looked around and saw that no one was looking her way, but then she heard a voice from behind her.
Rain? What are you doing here?
Tomcat?
It's Daravit now, but sometimes I think I like Tomcat better.
You're a Jedi now?
No, I stayed on Rusan. After my hand. I became a healer.
What are you doing here?
I came to... Rain, we have to get out of here. The Jedi are looking for you.
Tomcat, what are you talking about?
A Jedi came to Rusan. I told them about you and Bane. That's why they brought me here.
How much have you told them? Tell me what you told them!
There isn't any time. I was waiting here for them to come get me. You have to leave, or they will find you.
Zannaah's cousin from her youth had suddenly returned to her life. He admitted to exposing her and Darth Bane, and that the Jedi were after them. Without hesitating, Zannaah copies the data she needs about the obelisks and quickly runs a search for the Typhon coordinates. She then grabs her cousin and makes their way back to Zannaah's ship. She told Daravit that he was coming along because she couldn't leave him with the Jedi to expose her further. He also said he was a healer, so she intended on employing his services as to perform the procedure on her master to remove the obelisks. When they were both safe and secure back on the ship, Zannaah punched in the coordinates for Typhon. Warning her master was now the top priority. Zannaah was committed to her future with Bane. She knew the entire Sith's legacy would one day be hers, and she needed Bane to keep teaching her the ways of the dark side until she was ready. During the journey, her cousin insisted on calling Zannaah by her childhood name, Rain. Zannaah counter-insisted and expressed her loyalty to Darth Bane, her loyalty to the Sith. It was clear that her cousin was trying to find the light inside of her, but it was gone, extinguished by the burning passion of the dark side. Zannaah force-chokes her cousin and demands that he remain silent for the rest of the journey, or she will kill him. Zannaah was disgusted by her Padawan disguise, so now that they were in hyperspace, she washed out her hair dye and changed her clothes. By the time they entered orbit and approached Darth Bane's location, her master had already sensed her arrival and came to meet her at the entrance of Belia Dazu's stronghold. When she stepped off the ship, her master immediately questioned her about Daravit, also known as Tomcat. He saw the stump on his arm and recognized who he was in an instant. She offered the explanation that they needed him to perform the procedure to remove the obelisks. However, their conversation was interrupted when Zannaah swings her head around to face the skies. She had a concerned expression slowly growing over her face.
Master,
What's going on?
we were followed.
It seems we have some friends. The Jedi have found us.
Zannaah was followed on her way to meet Bane. Several Jedi were making their way toward their location. There was no time to board a ship and take off, so Bane instructed they all get inside. Within a room, they could fortify and defend themselves against the Jedi. Bane directed them towards a room with just one opening. Bane stashes his treasure from the tomb inside an old storage room. Daravit, also known as Tomcat, also hid inside here for the duration. Not too long after, the one and only entrance to the room explodes. 4 Jedi, all with their lightsabers ignited, charge into the room and towards the Sith Lords. The Jedi split into 2 groups of 2 as to outnumber each opponent. Zannaah saw her master charge the Jedi head-on, like a bantha. Quickly turning her attention to her own 2 opponents, Zannaah took a different approach and backpedaled into a corner. This way, she could defend against 2 assailants without worrying about needing to cover her flanks. Opposing her was 2 Jedi Knights. One wielded a single green blade, while the other wielded a much larger, blue, double-bladed lightsaber. After their fight began, Zannaah observed that the man with the single blade was indirectly helping her defend against the second Jedi. The first Jedi was slow and clumsy. He had no rhythm with his Jedi comrade. At one point, she saw an opportunity to kill him, but resisted. Keeping him alive was helping her more than killing him would right now. She needed to wear down the second Jedi much more, as he was clearly the real threat. Zannaah noticed that a 5th Jedi entered the room, an Ithorian, who began meditating by the door. She knew this was likely battle meditation, and the Jedi they were fighting were being enhanced by this technique. Then, one of the Jedi who was fighting her master called over for reinforcements, so the Jedi with the green saber retreated from Zannaah to help fight Darth Bane. The second Jedi, who Zannaah now realized was much larger and more imposing than even Bane, was now on the full offensive. She was able to keep up and defend against his blows, but he had her matched, maybe even outmatched, in terms of lightsaber combat. Then, Zannaah felt the battle meditation the Jedi were using suddenly stop. The big man she was fighting realized too, and it caused him to hesitate and look back at the Ithorian, who had been sent careering across the room by someone else's force push. But Zannaah didn't know who did it. That didn't matter. Within a fraction of a second, Zannaah twisted and curled her fingers to conduct her dark sorcery. She drove the Jedi mad with visions of his greatest fears. The Jedi was unable to resist, and Zannaah simply cut him down as he flailed around like a helpless child. When Zannaah looks across the room, she can see her master holding his own against 3 Jedis, at least 2 of which were Jedi Masters. Zannaah cloaked herself and hid her presence. She then snuck up to the female Ichani Jedi and stabbed her in the back. The other 2 Jedi, who were also fighting Bane, stopped and looked in horror as their comrade fell to the ground. Bane seized his opportunity and cut off the saber hand of the Jedi with the green weapon. Bane then turned and hewed off the head of the other Jedi opposing him. Before Zannaah could react, Bane had then leaped across the room and landed next to the Ithorian and slicing his multiple throats in one sweep. Her master turned around to finish off their last opponent, the now one-handed Jedi. As he unleashed his furious force lightning, the mortally wounded Ithorian wrapped his hand around Bane's ankle and projected a shield around them both. The lightning that was intended to strike the one-handed Jedi had instead reflected inside the shield and continuously bounced around. The lightning that Bane produced enveloped himself as he screamed in pain. He did pack quite the punch. The shimmering glow caused Zannaah to look away. When the shield expired, her master hit the floor, smirking and charred. Before she ran to him, she saw the last Jedi scrambling towards his lightsaber. Zanna looked down upon him with a hateful and sinister stare. He looked back at her with innocent, pleading eyes, but she responded by bringing her saber down and ending his life. All 5 Jedi that followed them to Typhon were now dead. Zanna ran to her master, hoping he was still alive. She still had so much to learn from him. She wasn't ready to be alone just yet. She saw that several of the obelisks hadn't survived. On his chest were melted shells that were visibly charred and deformed. Other obelisks on his body had survived, but they were damaged so badly they were causing them to feast on his power much more furiously than they would normally, which was draining his life force. Zanna knew that removing them now was the top priority. She could sense that her master still lived. He wasn't dead yet. Zanna's cousin Daravit came out of hiding and saw the conclusion of the battle. He asked Zanna if Bane was dead, but she explained. Zanna then told Daravit that he would need to perform the procedure on Bane. Daravit protested that he did not have the knowledge nor the equipment to do such a thing. Remembering a story her master once told her, Zanna decides to take Bane back to Ambria, where they would find the healer Khalib. This healer had helped Bane once before, only after he threatened the life of his daughter, however. She knew that Khalib was probably Bane's only hope of survival right now. Zanna carried her master using the Force back to the ship and positioned him in the medical bay. She instructed Daravit to keep him alive at all costs. Zanna then punches in the coordinates for Ambria. Her master survived the journey there. His will was strong and clearly his power in the dark side was the only thing helping him cling to life right now. If he died, Zanna wasn't sure she would be able to pick up where he left off. She still didn't know how to contact his spy network. She still didn't fully understand how to operate in the shadows as a visionary, like Bane. For the sake of the future of the Sith, she had to keep her master alive so he could finish training her. It was the only way forward. When the trio arrived at the healer's camp on Ambria, Zanna began to recall a story her master once told her. This healer Khalib once cured Bane of poisoning. At first he refused to help the Dark Lord, but in the end he got his way. Zanna searched the healer's camp to find no one home. What was more strange is that she couldn't find any supplies, medical equipment, or anything that signaled a healer would live here. Then she searches one of the tents again, convinced that the healer and his daughter are hiding somewhere. She throws up the sleeping rug using the Force and reveals a small hatch. Inside was the healer Khalib.
Get out. Now.
I know who you are.
Good. Then you know why I'm here. You helped my master before, and now you will help again.
No.
Do you have any idea what I could do to you?
It doesn't matter. I've known about you and your master ever since you first set up camp. I knew one day he would return for my help. You can no longer threaten me. My daughter has moved away, and I know not where she went, or what name she uses now.
If you don't help my master, I will hunt your daughter down and make you watch as I skin her alive. But before, I will force her to watch as I torture her own loved ones and kill them one by one.
Then go. Leave me here in peace. We both know you'll never find her.
You will surrender to me. You know how to make this end. Say you will help my master.
Rain, stop! What are you doing? You're killing him. Put him down.
Zanna attempted to force the healer into submission, but she knew it wouldn't work. Back when Bane first tried to intimidate the healer, he had thrown his own hand into the boiling pot of water to prove to Bane that he could not make him succumb through physical pain. The healer was touched by the Force. However, he leaned not towards the light or dark, but towards nature itself. Zanna walked away from the camp to gather her thoughts and tried to think up a new plan. She couldn't threaten the healer's daughter. She was nowhere in reach. Daravit came across to Zanna and explained he had convinced the healer to help. Zanna was of course very skeptical of this and wanted to know how he managed to do it. Daravit explains that Zanna must send a message back to the Jedi Council, declaring their surrender so they can come be arrested. If she did this, the healer would agree to heal her master. Daravit also tried to tell Zanna that it might be possible she would be forgiven by the Jedi. She had been forced into this life by Darth Bane. She didn't know anything else now. The Jedi would understand this and maybe want to help redeem her. After all, the Jedi believe in the power of redemption. But for her master, it would be too late. There was no doubt that he would be arrested and then maybe even executed by the Senate. Zanna considers her options. She did of course not agree with Daravit's plan. She was in fact quite angry that he had even tried to make the deal. But the answer hit Zanna. This was the only way forward. She agrees to the plan and sends out the beacon carrying a message for the Jedi Order. A Sith Lord still lives. He killed 5 Jedi on Typhon. He is now on Ambria, under the care of a healer named Khalib. He is badly injured and helpless. This was the message that Zanna sent. She then goes to check on her master and see how his recovery is going. As promised, the healer was able to nurse Bane back to somewhat good health. His skin had been near fully restored, yet it would still be many weeks before he was fit to get out of bed. When her master finally came back to reality and woke up, she spoke with him.
What happened?
We had to remove the obelisks. They were killing you. I brought you to the healer you told me about, but...
What is it? Spit it out.
The only way we would agree was if I sent a message back to the Jedi, letting them know you are here. They're coming for you.
You have exposed me. You betrayed me.
It was the only way we could heal you, Master. You still have so much to teach me.
And how can that happen now? The Jedi are on their way. Darth Zannaah, you are my chosen. The heir to the legacy of the Sith. You can still claim your rightful place as their master. Strike me down. Take my place. Kill the others here and leave this world. Seek out a new apprentice and keep the Order alive.
Our ship is disabled and the Jedi will be here in a few hours.
Kill me now. Deny the Jedi their so-called justice.
A Sith never surrenders, Master. You taught me that.
The Jedi will be here soon. Act now, my apprentice, before it's too late. Strike me down.
As her master fell back into a weakened state of slumber, the dark side gathered within Darth Zannaah. Lord of the Sith, she ignites her weapon and strolls back towards Khalib and Daravit. With a flash flood of rage, Zannaah lashes out against the healer and hews off his hands and feet at the joints. While the healer flailed around like a helpless child in agony, she swipes again and hews off his legs at the knees and his arms at the elbow. Daravit was next. While Khalib slowly suffered on the ground, Zannaah penetrates her cousin's mind and plummets it into darkness, drawing out his worst fears and nightmares, reducing him to nothing but a blubbering fool. Zannaah then used her saber to cut up the healer into even more tiny pieces. She relished in the gore. Her cousin had earlier tried to convince Zannaah that this life was forced upon her. Daravit did not realize that Zannaah chose to be Sith. She chose to seize her power and never become a victim again. She would never feel pain again, only inflict it upon others. Her loyalty to Bane and the survival of the Sith was the only thing that mattered. The Jedi were nearing. Zannaah had to act quick. She hid herself, along with her master, underneath the trap door where she previously found the healer. Not too long after, 14 Jedi showed up to the camp. Clearly, they got the message. The Jedi team searched the camp and found only bits and pieces of the healer. His head was the only whole piece, rested atop a cooking pot. When the Jedi grew closer to their tents, Daravit shot out. Still influenced by Zannaah's dark sorcery, Daravit attacked the Jedi, and they responded by killing him. The Jedi, in all their great wisdom, assumed that Daravit was the Dark Lord Bane, and that he had killed the healer after he was restored. when in reality, Zannaah and her master were safely hidden away and concealed with her cloaking spell, the same one she fooled the Jedi with before back in the archives. The Jedi cleared the camp and returned to Coruscant, while Zannaah and Darth Bane safely came out of hiding. Once again, the Jedi believed the Sith to be truly gone. The Jedi believed Darth Bane was dead. Zannaah was learning. She used the tools her master showed her, cunning and secrecy.
Where are the Jedi?
They went back to Coruscant.
Explain.
The Jedi arrived, and now they think you're dead, so they left.
The healer?
He's dead.
Your cousin?
Also dead. The Jedi killed him.
Ah, good. I underestimated you, my apprentice. Had I known your plans, I would not have asked you to kill me.
I swear this to you, my master. One day I will surpass you. One day you will no longer be of any use to me. And on that day, I will kill you, Lord Bane. But that day is not today.
Over the next 10 years, Zannaah continues to study under Bane, learning the ways of the Sith. Her master is now in his mid-40s, while Zannaah recently turned 30. Her master, Darth Bane, had clearly suffered physically due to the dark side. His appearance was rapidly aged, yet Zannaah was still the definition of beauty. Whether her power in Sith sorcery gave her some unique ability to stay looking this way, or she just simply had yet to see this corruption happen, was unclear. Over the past many years, Darth Zannaah had become so powerful and full of knowledge that she began to contemplate more and more her final confrontation with Bane. Recently, her master had been displaying a tremor in his left hand. Zannaah wasn't sure if this was a sign of his decaying old weak body or just simply a test. She didn't know if her master was wanting to see if she would attack or not. This was the only thing that made her hesitate on striking out. Zannaah and Bane now lived on the world of Seotric 4. Here they posed as wealthy collectors and entrepreneurs. They had a large mansion to the east of the spaceport. This mansion also held the treasury of Darth Bane. However, Zannaah hadn't been granted access. She figured that if she wanted the knowledge inside, she'd probably have to take it by force. Darth Bane had sent word for Zannaah. He likely had a mission for her. As she entered the room, she once again noticed the tremor in her master's left hand. She pretends she didn't see it happen, and her master quickly pulls his arm under the table out of sight.
Master, you sent for me?
Yes, I need you to investigate something. In the Outer Rim is a world named Dawn. A Jedi was killed here 3 standard days ago.
If someone killed a Jedi, then that's worthy of our attention. Do we know who did it?
That is something you will need to find out.
What was a Jedi doing on Dawn? That place has no use to the Council.
That is also something you will need to discover for yourself.
The Jedi are likely sending their own to investigate this matter too.
Not right away. The Royal House of Dawn is instead sending a political ambassador to Coruscant. They've done this intentionally to delay the investigation.
They must be very rich to pull something like that off. Those type of favors don't come cheap. A planet in the Outer Rim with no real bearing on the galaxy. Yet it has great riches, viable resources, mining.
Correct. The planet no longer has much surface left for people to live on.
I'll leave tonight.
When Zannaah left, she once again considered the tremor she saw in her master's hand. She was still unsure whether or not this was some test. So far, she was convinced it was a test of patience to some degree. However, she decided that this was the last time she took orders from Darth Bane. She vowed to herself that the next time they meet, she would initiate her challenge for the rank of Master. For now, she would continue on this mission to Dawn. A Jedi was killed on Dawn, and Bane wanted to know why. So did Zannaah. It's not often a Jedi is killed, and if whoever killed them claimed to be followers of the Dark, it was their responsibility to eliminate them. This was the rule of 2, there can be only one master and one apprentice. Zanna began to wonder if she would perhaps find her own new apprentice on Dawn. Perhaps whoever killed the Jedi would be a worthy candidate. She had been searching before now, but she never found anybody who was worthy enough to become her apprentice. Zanna also wondered if Darth Bane had already thought of all this. What if he knew that Zanna would search for a new apprentice on Dawn? What if Darth Bane no longer thought she was worthy and seeked to replace her?
If that's your plan, Master, then you're gonna be in for a big surprise. Underestimate me at your own peril.
When Zanna arrives on Dawn, she begins her investigation by questioning locals about the recent events with a Jedi. Although she needed to operate in secrecy, the death of a Jedi is news not many can keep hidden. The locals were sure to know something about what happened. Zanna discovered that someone else had already been here, asking the same questions. She was told someone who seemed like a Jedi, who had silver hair, was asking the same questions a few days before. Zanna decides it's best to trail this person in question, follow the lead of who he asked questions to. What Zanna also discovered is that the miners of this world had uncovered a valuable find. The Jedi that was originally killed here was sent to recover the treasures. This meant that whatever was found was likely an artifact of the Force, so she now knew that whoever was asking questions before her was likely searching for this treasure, if it was still here of course. Eventually, Zanna uncovered that the person asking questions was not a Jedi. The locals told her that this person was using physical force and torture to get answers, traits that are not typically found in a Jedi. Zanna had used similar methods to acquire information here on Dawn. The trail she followed ended at a cantina. Despite the sign saying closed, she made her way inside. She discovered a few bodies inside. None of them matched the description of the man she was following. She also knew to look for the cantina owner, who was a Rodian. He didn't seem to be amongst the dead. At that moment, a person entered the cantina, but it was too dark to see. She revealed them with the light of her glow stick, and she saw a Rodian stood, frozen in fear. She assumed that this was the cantina owner.
Who are you? Did you steal Quanno's booze?
I stole nothing. I came to ask you questions. Quanno, I presume?
More questions. You a Jedi too? Like the other one?
A Jedi? Do you mean the one who was killed?
No, the other one. The human. Tall, with silver hair.
I'm looking for him, but why do you think he's a Jedi?
He has a lightsaber. He used it to give Quanno the scar.
He tortured you? You poor thing.
He wanted information.
I'm sorry, Quanno, but I need information too. I need to know what you told him.
Zanna learned from the Rodian that this mysterious man with a lightsaber had come to Dawn in search of artifacts that were dug up. The man found them, killed the miners, and then took his reward. This happened 2 days ago. Zanna had a new lead and now intended to follow it. She knew this man had the final answers she seeks, and not only that, he could be a potential apprentice. From what she had learned, she had deduced that he was likely to be a Dark Jedi, an enemy she would not underestimate. The Dark Jedi were indirectly more dangerous than even the Sith. A rogue Jedi only cares about themselves. They are driven by selfish actions that benefit only them. The Sith, on the other hand, are more calculated and far less reckless. The Rodian Quanno tells Zanna that he knows someone at the spaceport who might be able to help find out where the man went. She was then introduced to someone at the spaceport who claimed to be able to find out the docking details. This person was also a friend of Quanno, and they both saw an opportunity to make some credits out of Zanna.
A man with long silver hair came through here. Did you see him?
Ah, yeah. They had a real nice ship. State of the art. Had a real nice interior. Even nicer than yours.
How would you know what the interior of my ship looks like?
He's a smuggler.
Not exactly. Just a little side hustle I got going. Gotta pay the bills, you know.
No, I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
Oh, we have a fiery doll here, don't we? Let me break it down for you. I'm the only one who works here at night. The only point for 1,000 K. I can pretty much do anything I want, including break into someone's shuttle. It's one of my many talents. If you're lucky, I'll show you my other talents later on.
So you break into people's ships and then steal from them?
Nah, that'd be stupid. Too easy to be caught.
So what do you do?
I sneak inside, download the docking data, find out which worlds they're going to and from. I have a guy on Castle who sends me a shipment of glimmer stem each month. Whenever one of my contacts needs a spice delivered, I sneak into their ship, lose all the risk of smuggling myself. The owner is none the wiser. I get paid my credits.
Spice smuggling is a capital crime on many worlds.
Exactly. The owner of the ship gets in trouble if they decide to search it.
So, when the man with the silver hair left, you snuck onto his ship and downloaded his docking data.
Got it right here on my datapad.
So you know his name? Where is he from?
Yes, I do. But it's gonna cost you.
Of course. Name your price.
Go big! Go big! Remember, Quanno get half.
400 credits.
Deal. Start talking.
The person Zanna dealt with at the spaceport told her that the man had come from Nal Hutta. Despite the name not matching his species, the dock worker insisted that the nav data was accurate.
Out of curiosity, did you put a shipment on this man's ship?
No, I don't deal in business of Nal Hutta. They don't like small-time interference.
What about my ship?
Nah, you're the first person ever came here from Sir Trek.
Zanna responded by igniting her dual saber. Immediately, she slices a gash through the dock worker's chest, while her second blade simultaneously removed the head of the Rhodian Quanno. The two dirtbags secured their deaths the moment the dock worker revealed he knew where Zanna came from. Now knowing where the mysterious man went, Nal Hutta, along with having his ship's registration, she went after him. Using the vast network of spies she and Bane now managed, Zanna was able to use her own contacts to pinpoint the location of this mysterious man on Nal Hutta. She learned that his real name was Set Harth, and that there were many rumours of him once being a Jedi. She also learned he was very wealthy. Zanna could tell that this person was clearly vain and arrogant. When she arrived on Nal Hutta, she intended to break into Set's mansion while he was away at a party. She explores his home and sees that the man has a taste for expensive things. Art, rugs, sculptures could be found throughout. After a thorough search, Zanna came across many Sith artifacts that Set had accumulated over time, majority of which were of little consequence, but the collection still appealed to Zanna. It was impressive Set could obtain anything at all. Then, Zanna sensed that Set had returned. She didn't mask her presence in the mansion. She wanted to know if he could sense her presence, as she could him. When she looks over the balcony rail, she sees that Set is simply seated and drinking wine. Zanna was disappointed to see her potentially new apprentice be so contempt. She jumps over the railing and lands in the room where he is seated.
Greetings. I don't believe I have had the pleasure. My name is Set Harth.
I know who you are.
Why don't you make yourself comfortable? Plenty of room for both of us.
I'd rather stand.
Follow me home from the party, did you? Normally I wouldn't forget such a pretty face.
Before she could respond, Set had summoned his lightsaber and had thrown it across the room at Zanna. At first, she thought she had made a mistake by coming here and finding only a womanizing fool. But when the attack came, she realized that he had known he was in danger and needed to catch her off guard. Obviously, Zanna was able to evade this pitiful attack. The man tried to use his power in the Force to push Zanna across the room, but it failed. Zanna was trained by the Dark Lord of the Sith, and such basic attacks were something she mastered as a teenager. Blocking the man's push was an easy task.
You're a Jedi?
A Sith.
I thought the Sith were all gone.
Not yet.
Let me see if I can fix that.
Only now did Zanna ignite her saber. The two engage and their battle begins. Set's first assault had him try to sweep Zanna at the legs and throw objects at her using the Force. Zanna outmaneuvered everything. She wanted to see what this former Jedi's potential was, so instead of using her full power, she merely taunted the man by countering his attacks with light blows intended to frustrate him. After a short amount of time, it was clear to Zanna that she had her opponent significantly outmatched. Zanna was proficient in recognizing and defending against many forms of saber styles. Her own personal expertise, however, came in the form of Sorisu defense. Using this, she could more than easily defend against Set's weak attacks and still stay strong and full of stamina. She was essentially the master of wearing down an opponent. During their fight, Zanna saw more than a dozen opportunities to kill and finish her opponent off. But she had come here in search of a new apprentice, and killing was not the intention. Now that she had seen proof he had potential to be trained, she was satisfied in her choice of apprentice. Despite not being able to beat Zanna, she wasn't expecting him to. Now, she had one thing left to do. She could just simply force Set into being her apprentice, however this would eventually prove foolish. She had the obligation to make her apprentice want to train under her. She had to show Set that she was so superior in the power of the dark side that he would have no choice but to want to learn from her, eager to learn her secrets. Zanna lashed out and kicked Set hard in the chin. She called out and said, "Do you yield?" However, the rogue Jedi lashed out once more, and in response, Zanna reached out to his mind and initiated her sorcery. Zanna shredded through his defenses and wrapped his mind around the void. His body falls to the floor as he slips into a comatose state. This was his final test. If he was weak-minded, then the spell would leave him in despair and fear, forever a husk. If his will proved strong, however, he would awaken. With her task of obtaining an apprentice complete, Zanna decides it's time to return to Ciutric 4 and confront her master, Darth Bane. On the return journey to Ciutric 4, Zanna's new apprentice had awoken from his final test. Zanna's plan had worked, and Set was now willing to become her apprentice. She informed Set of the situation and where they were going. She also explained her master and how she was about to challenge him. At first, Set thought Zanna wanted him to help her defeat Bane, but Zanna clarified that she would be facing Bane alone. Attacking the master in numbers was the old way of the Sith. Now, only the rule of two applied. The apprentice must earn the title of Dark Lord by killing their master. This was the only way to keep the Sith strong. It ensures each master is stronger than the one who came before. Together they both arrive on Ciutric 4. One of Zanna's personal contacts at the spaceport reached out to her to inform her that someone had recently landed near their mansion. Before they touched down, Zanna had also sensed a disturbance, so now she started to think that something had happened. Her contact also said that her brother, who was actually Darth Bane however, they just posed as siblings for cover here on Ciutric 4. The contact said her brother had recently returned only a few hours before the foreign shuttle landed outside the spaceport to the east. Zanna and her new apprentice jump into a speeder and head toward the mansion. Zanna knew that her master was up to something. He never leaves Ciutric 4, so whatever the reason he left, she knew it wasn't in her favour. However, when she grew closer to the mansion, she realised she could not sense her master's presence at all. Upon entering, she discovered the front door was already open and that the foyer looked like it had been in a battle. Furniture was turned over and smashed and scorch marks riddled the woodwork. Someone had captured her master. She didn't know how or why or even who did it, but she could sense that her master had been taken prisoner. This kinda changed her plans. She originally intended to come back here and confront Bane in her final lesson. However, if his kidnappers were to kill her master, then she would be robbed of her ascension to the Dark Lord of the Sith. She had no choice but to find her master so she could initiate the final battle and rightfully claim her place in destiny. So far, Zanna's new apprentice was starting to seem more and more unkeen of being her apprentice. She senses doubt and hesitation in his mind. However, after Set discovered a small badge bearing the insignia of the Royal Dawn House, they both figured out where the captors had taken her master Darth Bane. Zanna was obliged to obey the rule of two and seek her master out to destroy him. If she allowed him to be a prisoner, he might escape and then hunt her down. She couldn't allow this. Zanna sends Set on a mission to recover more information about Dern. In the meantime, she went to visit a contact of Darth Bane's. She wanted to know why he had left the planet. When she met with a man named Argel 10, she learned that her undercover brother, Darth Bane, had been asking questions about a Darth and Dedu. Zanna didn't recognize the name and wasn't able to cross-reference it with anything she already had. However, when she mumbled the name to her apprentice, he latched on and explained that he knew who Darth and Dedu was. He was said to be the immortal God King of Praguth. Through Set, Zanna learned that Darth and Dedu were said to have discovered the secret to immortality. A realization came crashing down on Zanna. Her master had distracted her so he could seek out this secret of eternal life. From Zanna's point of view, this was in direct violation of the Rule of Two. She wondered if her master was trying to circumvent the Rule of Two by making himself immortal. She knew now, more than ever, that now was the time to strike. With her new apprentice in tow, they both take off for the planet Dern. As it would turn out, Darth Bane had apparently been kidnapped by someone inside of the royal house. He was currently being held at the heart of an old maximum security facility. Bane was the only occupant. When Zanna and Set arrive, she instructs her apprentice to wait with the ship until she has returned. The fight with Bane is hers alone. Zanna rushes into the prison and disguises herself in the shadows. Her movement noise was mute, and she moved too fast to see without visible light. Eventually, Zanna senses the growing power of her master, and then suddenly, the alarms of the prison start to go off. She feels a disturbance in the force and knows that this was her master escaping. Probably by now, he was able to sense her presence too. So she forgets about stealth and moves into a much faster stride to hunt down her master. Hunt her master. This was it. He had proven himself unworthy of being the master by trying to circumvent the rules, trying to steal her place as the rightful Dark Lord. She ignites her saber and moves faster than she ever moved before. Then she sees him, simply stood down the corridor, talking with a female human. His guard was totally dropped. He was talking to someone from his past, Zanna was able to tell. Bane was just talking with her like some casual affair on the sidewalks of Coruscant. Zanna builds her power and unleashes it with a mighty force push that sends her master reeling. She caught both of them off guard. However, Bane was able to shield himself just in time and dampen the push. The female he was talking with could not say the same. She was sent careering down the corridor, flipping and smashing into walls. The first blow had been dealt. The confrontation had begun.
You dare to violate the Rule of Two. You dare to steal my ascension from me.
What are you talking about, you fool?
I know you went to Praguth. I know you seek the secret of immortality.
I have lived by the Rule of Two ever since I brought it into existence.
Yet you intend to make yourself immortal. You seek to be the master for all time.
You are unworthy of being my apprentice. You wanted to wait until I became old and weak.
No, you will not turn this on me. You promised me I would become the Dark Lord. Now you want to take that away from me.
The title of Dark Lord must be earned. Seized from the all-powerful grasp of the Master.
That is why I am here.
Do you really think you can defeat me, apprentice?
You allowed yourself to be captured by those royalists. You even allowed yourself to be caught alone without your lightsaber.
Bane was near helpless. He hadn't recovered fully, and right now he didn't have his weapon with him. Zanna danced and flourished around her master, teasing him into a pathetic death. However, Darth Bane was not so easily subdued. He was able to jump and twist and maneuver out of every advantage she had on him, until eventually their bout was cut short when her master's lightning attack sets off one of the hidden charges in the walls. Debris and rocks fall to separate them both. The exchange was short, yet Zanna had learned a lot. She realised that she allowed Bane to lure her in, coaxing her into a dance routine. If Zannaah had gathered her power and used her Sith sorcery, the fight would have taken a different turn. Zannaah returns to her ship only to realise that her new apprentice, the rogue Jedi Set, was not there. She had sensed his hesitation before, but she wasn't so sure he would do a runner that fast. But that is what happened. Set had taken off, and now Zannaah was all alone. No master and no apprentice. Zannaah takes her ship into the vast nothingness of space and decides to think, meditate. Then she gets a message from Darth Bane. Her master wanted to meet on Ambria. Zannaah couldn't help but find the choice of location somewhat funny. Bane had already nearly died twice now on Ambria. Knowing that it is her destiny to seize the mantle of Dark Lord away from Bane, she immediately makes her way for Ambria. Bane was waiting for her there, near the old healer's camp. To Zannaah's surprise, Bane had a new apprentice at his side, an Iktochi female named Darth Cognos. This Iktochi had vowed to pledge allegiance to the warrior, to the winner of Bane and Zannaah's duel. These terms were acceptable to her. She was in need of a new apprentice anyways. Darth Zannaah approaches her old master.
Today, your reign ends, Darth Bane.
Come, Zannaah, your final lesson awaits.
My power far surpasses yours now. I am the master.
Then prove it.
Darth Cognos simply stood by and watched the duel. What she was witnessing was the future of the Sith, and quite possibly even the galaxy. In utter awe, she could not take her eyes away from the fight. Darth Bane had charged and gone on the offensive. Zannaah simply blocked, parried, and deflected each one of his attacks. Both were skilled with their respective weapons, but when two powerhouses like this meet, it is not your weapon skill that decides the fight, but that of your ability to draw on the dark side of the Force. As Sith, both were accustomed to feeding off of their enemy's fear, but right now, only the burning flames of anger, passion, and strength were roaring. Doom Mock was not possible here. However, Zannaah trips on a recently dug grave and stumbles to the floor. Bane was on her in a fraction of a second, kicking her hard in the ribs and fracturing at least one. Zannaah managed to roll away and escape a killing blow, knowing that now was the time to show her master just how powerful she had become. Within 1 second, Zannaah dominates her master's mind, using her Sith sorcery. She drags out his worst fears and nightmares, bringing them to life before his eyes. For a moment, she thought she had won. Bane was flailing around and screaming. Then the scream got louder and louder, until eventually a cloud of dark side energy bursts. Zannaah senses that her master had broken free of her magics. His will was incredibly strong. Bane lunged at her, looking to land a finishing blow, but Zannaah was too quick. She had already gathered her power and released it in the form of dark smoke that crept across the land. This forced Bane to stop and think about his next move. Then, the smoke materializes huge and long tendrils, and they lash out at Bane. He was able to dodge the first flurry, but then he was struck on the shoulder by one of the tendrils. The location it hit was completely burned away, like it just cut out a piece of flesh. The pain Darth Bane felt could only be compared to the nothingness of the void. His lightsaber and force attacks were doing no harm to Zannaah's sorcery, and he knew he was about to lose. In a last desperate attempt, Bane lunges again and flips and dives through the tendrils until he reaches Zannaah. Then, he kicks her legs out from under her, sending her crashing to the ground. Bane swings to remove her head, except the tendrils behind had caught up and latched onto Bane's saber arm and whipped through it. Darth Bane's arm fell away from his body, including his weapon. Now, both of them are on the ground. Bane grabs Zannaah by the ankle and then he's gone. A flash of light and her master disappeared, except he was still here. She could feel him, sense him. She was him, or he was her. Somehow, Bane had thrown his essence into Zannaah's body. Two wills stand off internally, neither side willing to budge an inch and surrender to the other, and then it was over. Darth Zannaah, successor of Darth Bane and the new Dark Lord of the Sith, rises to claim victory. The ascension she was once promised had not been given to her, but she had taken it. Zannaah claims Cognos as her new apprentice, and her rule began. Despite winning the Battle of Wills against her master, she would forever be scarred with the same tremor rumbling through her left hand.
My name is Goddess Demoness, and I am the voice of your favorite Dark Lord, Darth Zannaah. Be sure to check out our own YouTube channel right here. That is, of course, if you are worthy of serving us.